Hi, and welcome to another Rigonomicon.com video. Today I'm going to go over some things that I thought would be important for my students in particular that I've noticed are struggling with a few things. I know I was working on some other videos, but I thought this might actually help a few of you. For some of you that are not coming from my class, you will find that there's some solutions here to some problems that seems like it's been on the forums forever. So I've written a couple plugins that should help us bridge the gap with blend shapes that have basically a blend shape with subtargets. Getting that into Unreal seemed to be an impossible thing, but it really isn't if you think about it. At the end of the day, a blend shape works very well in Unreal, and you just have to calculate the value that would go there. When you're doing subtargets, if you know how the math is being done, then you can actually create in the node editor, you could create the right nodes to be able to calculate its value from a single controller. So I'm going to go over this. First, I'm going to start with how this came to be and why I'm making this video. Basically, one of the things I've noticed is a lot of my students are going to be using Unreal. So that comes with, yeah, there's a lot of great stuff in Unreal, but if you're coming from Maya, there's some things that might not work in Unreal as you'd expect. There are certain things you might want to try to avoid using. Things like Dual-quaternion, for example, on your skinning. Frankly, there's a reason why we don't have Dual-quaternion in Unreal. The reason why is very simple. It's avoidable. You can do stuff without Dual-quaternion skinning with just normal linear skinning and just adding some volumes. In fact, I'm going to be making a video soon enough where I'm going to be covering a lot of ways to not just get around linear skinning issues, but also to just maintain the volume of your character. Even in game engines, it doesn't matter. These are techniques that will work on anything. Dual-quaternion, however, is something you want to avoid for a number of reasons. The first one is you're going to find that by activating it, yes, you may have a better elbow that bends, but you might find that certain positions or rotations, well, things break. And also, you're going to have these weird behaviors with the vertices that you didn't expect was going to happen. And then you're going to end up in this weird problems where you go, oh, okay, so some vertices should be linear, some should be Dual-quaternion. I'll solve this by adding basically this third mode, which is kind of like uses a blend or a mask on the vertices to be able to say which ones are linear, which ones are Dual-quaternion. You're just creating a lot of problems for yourself. If you just embrace linear skinning and work with that, you're going to get a much more optimized. This is the reason why we do this in video games. It's way more optimized, and every little bit of GPU and CPU counts. So and it's avoidable. So that's not going to be there. All right, so let's talk about. I've cut the mesh up so that I'm just using something that was sent to me. So here's the problem. We want to have an eyelid to follow. You should be able to see this kind of a light color of what they wanted to do with a blend shape. So they wanted to make the eyelid come down, and they were having trouble with skin. It was getting to look too flat, and then they decided to give it a shot with blend shapes. Now, blend shapes, just like skinning, is a linear calculation, but it's different. You're going to have different problems. So I'm going to go over how we can, basically this whole video is about talking about blend shapes and getting it to work in Unreal properly, and also what it is that we're doing with blend shapes, that maybe we can find alternative methods to do this so that it's cleaner and it's nicer and gives us better values. So if we were to use a blend shape here, unfortunately, because of the nature of blend shapes, a vertice will go basically, if you had the vertices that are down here, if they started up here, it's going to go in a straight line going right through the eye, which means you're going to have to add a lot of sub targets in the blend shape in order to get it to actually do this nice kind of curvature. So I'm going to just show you what is traditionally seen in video games. So basically all I did was I added this circle. I'm going to turn on the X-ray so we can see it. And I found a point Normally we put it right at the center of the eyeball so that any vertices can cover the eye effectively. But in this case, we have a slightly different model design. So the eyelids are not exactly, I guess, following the surface of the of this eyeball. So we're gonna have to get creative here. We're gonna have to eyeball it. I was trying to avoid that pun. Whoop. Anyways, I got to do it anyways. So here's the idea. By just skinning it, we should be able to make it so that it doesn't have that problem with the blend shape where it goes right through the eye. And we didn't have to create like tons of dozens of blend shape sub-targets in order to get it to do that. This is a single bone, and we're already pretty close to our target mesh here. We're losing some volume here, but that's kind of normal because we're still blending linearly with the skin. And again, I wouldn't mess with dual-quaternion for something as simple as an eyelid. You're going to be paying for it in a lot of ways. So anyways, for this kind of scenario, you're going to find that most games, I can only speak for games. For movies, it might be a little different. But for games, I can tell you that this is pretty much the method that we use in order to be able to get the eyelids to come down like so. However, there is an alternative to this, and it just involves adding, just like we do with a twist bone in a wrist, we add a few more bones, not too many, of course, just a few more. Like in this case, we're just going to add 2. At most, I would add 2. And you should be able to start seeing that even if I cut this more, it's going to be quite nice. It's going to be a lot more circular and following the eye. Now, the way this is done, this is a very simple rig. If I look at the like I'm going to put it over here. Oh, by the way, some of you may have noticed I now have, instead of the keyboard, I've added something that tells you what buttons I'm pressing. One of the things I noticed about the on-screen keyboard, it's that you don't see what letters, like if I press F to focus, you wouldn't know. So I figured maybe something like this might be more useful. Let me know if you preferred the old on-screen keyboard thing or if you like this and it helps you out to understand what I'm doing. And if it's bothering you, you also let me know. Just put something in the comments to let me know what you'd like to see in the future. Okay, so this is the controller. So this is the thing that we animate. So you can see we have keys here, and all I did was animate it. It's the same bone that I had before, only I've made duplicates of it. And one thing that I'm going to mention is that this was zeroed out. So all of the keys, so if I go to this frame, it should be all 0. And the axis was aligned so that it would come down correctly and cover the eye on the correct axis here. So I zeroed that out, and that way it allowed me to just rotate the x-axis. Okay, so what that does too is if we make duplicates of it, it allows us to just take the rotation axis and just multiply it by a number to make it more or less of that what we're doing with the rotation. In both cases, it's going to be less. In this case, I want to do 66% of the values I was plugging into the first one, and in this one, I'm going to make it so that it's 33%. And I'm just going to double check here. All I'm doing is I'm taking the value and I'm multiplying it by 0.33. So that's good. That's how we're getting our 1/3. And over here, we're doing a multiply by 0.66, which makes it 2/3. And presto, that's it. That's the rig. It's really simple, and you should be able to get a nice clean curvature that covers the eye. All right, so we didn't have to do anything fancy. We didn't have to deal with all the issues that come from blend shapes. Okay, so now let's talk about blend shapes. And if you wanted to do something else that involves blend shapes, by all means, we can do that. Again, I'm going to be making another video related to volume preservation, and that will be an interesting video where I'm going to be going over the Malcolm rig again, how it was using blend shapes to preserve volume. But I'm going to recommend that you don't use blend shapes for that kind of stuff. When it comes to the face, generally I pick one system, either blend shapes or bones, for any particular region of the face. I try not to blend the two together. It's not a good idea to blend the two together because things can get out of sync. So for example, for lips, you may want to do blend shapes. For eyes, you might want to do bones. For eyebrows, you probably will be better off just using the Bezier controls that I made available, because it'll give you a lot of control over what's going on with the eyebrows, and at the same time, It avoids having to create dozens of controllers with all these blend shapes moving one object up and down and side to side. You'd have like 6 different blend shapes. Sometimes it's ridiculous. So we're gonna basically pick the best thing for each region of the face and make sure it doesn't overlap in a way where you can have things out of sync. And generally, that's the way to go. I have a video coming. I've been working on it, and anyhow, it should help you out in setting up a good solid face that you can animate well. All right, so now I'm going to open up the file that I've prepared, and we're going to talk about the issue first. The issue, here we go. So this is a mesh that I know my modeling skills are crazy, huh? So this is a sphere with an arrow, and the most important thing about this mesh is that little vertice right at the tip of the arrow, because we're going to be using that as a point of reference. So imagine this was an eyelid and you wanted to make it close by rotating to this other mesh over here, right? So in the case of my student that was doing a blend shape for the eyelids, this is kind of what they were doing. And what ended up happening when I have this very simple interface here. It's a little object that I can just slide that goes to this end, and over here it becomes 1. So here it starts at 0. It's x-axis. Then it's connected directly to the shape. By the way, in this version of the Rigonomicon, I've added, so it's 0.37 or 37. I've added a couple more things here so that we can see our shapes quicker, so we don't have to go through menus. And also I've added the plugins that I'll go over in a little while. So anyways, here it's very simple. There's a shape for this mesh, and this is the shape that it goes to, and I'm just going to click here. This is a very complex rig, as you can see. I have the translate X value of the interface plugging into the weight of the shape. That's why it's yellow here. So if I move this, it goes from 0 to 1 on that shape, and this of course is absolutely not usable at the moment because it's just blending from its vertex coordinates to the blend shape one. So the way a blend shape is, and this is just interesting for some of you that want to understand how a blend shape works. A blend shape at the end of the day is a big list of offsets that gets stored. So this over here isn't actually really storing the mesh, even though there is a place where it does store the mesh. What it's actually storing is the difference for each vertice. So the coordinate change from the original base mesh, right? That's generally every morph, blend shape, whatever you want to call it, is basically that. So basically it's saying, here's my coordinate for the base, and then it's going to store, for this blend shape, it's going to store what the difference is. So it's just going to move it along on one axis, boop, all the way over there. And that's why we're able to do a percentage, because if we have that stored as a delta or an offset, then we can just multiply this number times the change, and that will control how far it goes. So right now, if we're over here, it's going to be that distance traveled, but only that little bit of distance. So that's how it got there. If I go all the way to the end, it's going to be 100% of that distance that it needs to travel. So in a way, by setting it up this way, I'm showing you how a blend shape is working under the hood. Anyways, that aside, if you're seeing this as an eyelid where we wanted it to go like this and the curvature, there's absolutely nothing here that can help us, that can help the blend shape figure out in what direction to go. All right, so now I'm going to go to what many people do when they're presented with this kind of problem. I call it an abomination because you'll see in a second, and just how much pain this will eventually lead to. So I'm going to open up the shape editor again, and this is the one where we have these targets, these in-between targets or sub-targets, whatever you want to call it. And this is simple to set up in Maya, where you can basically add all of these sub-targets, and you just have to specify at what percentages they're activated. So as you travel through these, you could have it go from here at 25%, it's there, 50, 75, and then at 100% it ends up at the final shape. right? So, and it's all controlled by 1. So if I move this, it's the same setup where the value being plugged here is going to activate the blend shape. And if we look, aha, so someone says to me, Louis, you lied, this works just fine, get wrecked. But it doesn't really work if you just pay a little bit of attention to what's actually going on. I'm going to plot here what the actual shape is of like that one vertice that we're always paying attention to. So if you look at that tip, it's going in a way that is not following the circle. So that means that if this was actually trying to curve around a spherical eye, it would break, it would pass right through it. It would clip right into the eyeball, and then the eyeball would poke out of the eyelid, right? If it was at this point. So then you're probably thinking, well, I just add more shapes, right? More subshapes. Okay, this gets really hairy really fast, okay? At some point, you're going to be adding a lot. One of the reasons why I don't like using blend shapes, not just for this, but in general, is that it's very vertex reliant on vertices, which means that if you want to transfer this to another, like the other side of the body, you're going to have to make all the new blend shapes for the other side of the body. Then the other problem is, well, now if let's say I had an eyelid and I wanted eyelashes, so you want to add to the mesh, not even modify the mesh, well, now you have to do blend shapes for the eyelashes too. Like even clothing that goes on top of the character, and you have blend shapes, corrective blend shapes for elbows and things. Well, that's going to have to go to the clothes somehow. And if you have physics on those clothes, it's not going to be pretty. Okay, so all I'm saying is blend shapes have their use. If you're still stuck on this, you're going to have one more problem if you're bringing this into Unreal. The problem is, and I'll just bring this up again, this doesn't exist in Unreal. Just like the when I was talking about the Dual-quaternion, there's reasons why we don't have these. This is not an efficient use of blend shapes, even though now, ever since Unreal 4 point something, it became GPU accelerated, and it was no longer an issue like the old days where we had blend shapes that were just on the CPU and you couldn't use it. It wasn't an optimal, well, you could use it, but it wasn't optimal. But nowadays, blend shapes are optimal. However, doing this is not possible because there's no bridge. The FBX exporter can't actually bring that into Unreal. So I've written a plugin to help you out in case you do need this kind of thing set up. I'll show you now one where it's been set up. And for those of you, like for people that are on the forums in particular, it seems like it's been years that people have been asking for this and it never showed up. So I'm going to give you something that will allow you to actually do the equivalent of what we're seeing here and bring it into it'll be compatible and friendly for Unreal to be able to use. At the end of the day, Unreal can accept any number of blend shapes. It's GPU accelerated, and all it requires is the animation value of each blend shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up into its individual blend shapes and then just do the math necessary to transfer the value from this to each one of these individual blend shapes. Here, I'm going to load up a scene where I've already done the work. Unreal friendly, here we go. So this is the Unreal friendly. It should be exactly the same, and I'm even going to bring up again the trajectory that I left behind. If I select this and then move it along, you're going to see that it's doing exactly the same thing that it was doing in the other file with the sub targets. The only difference here is that if I right click here and I go shape editor, you're going to find that it's no longer just one shape that is not compatible with Unreal. You're going to have 4 that are compatible, and we just have to calculate these values. So if you look carefully, this is the math that we're going to have to figure out how to do. All right, that's all it's doing. And this now would work in Unreal no problem. So if you want to do this manually with the node editor, by all means you could. However, it's going to turn into a big mess of spaghetti. It's what we usually call it spaghetti when you have a node graph with lots of little lines everywhere. You want to avoid that because things break easily, and if anything does break, it's hard to debug, and it's hard to keep track of things that have too many of these little wires. However, we shouldn't be afraid to use the node editor. So if you want to use that, by all means, go ahead. So I'm going to load up a fresh version ready for this. Let's see. Here we go. How to set that up. Okay. Using one of the little plugins that I've made that is using the Maya API, which means it's a Python plugin. So that means you don't have to worry about what version of Maya you have. By all means, if you don't want to take the entire plugin tool set that I have here, you can grab just that one tool and just dump it into some folder that you can read it and see it. So if I go into the plugin manager, and if you've copied this one file into, it doesn't matter which version of Maya you have. If it's on Mac, on Linux, it'll work on all of them. If you go to, if you bring in this one called Bacon Sub-target and have it loaded, you will have it available in the node editor, and you'll be able to do exactly what I'm doing here. So over here, all I have is this thing ready. This is the thing that we're going to be animating, and I've got my mesh ready, and I've named the other meshes that are the shapes, just like I had in the other scene. And then I'm going to now make it so that this blends from one to the other. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the node editor. And all I have right now is this, let's see if I can maybe set it up so that we don't go too crazy here. I'm just going to bring that over here and bring this over here. Maybe something like that ought to do it. I still have my values and I have my node editor. So this is the thing that has the translate X, which is going to drive everything. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this object, and now I'm going to have to open up yet another thing. So I'm going to go to shape editor. And I'm going to go, you could do the other with the menus at the top, and we're going to do blend shape deformer. I have it selected, so it's going to create one for that one in particular, and we can call this abomination. And we're going to go create, and it's going to create it. And because I have this open and I have the option for it to drop anything that I create new into here, it's going to create this is just the blend shape. This is the container where we're going to be throwing shapes into it. So all I'm going to do now is I'm just going to select the other shapes that we want to have. And over here, I can right click directly, and I can go add selection as target, not a combination target, but as a target, meaning it's going to create shapes for each one of the ones I selected in the order in which I selected it. So if I look at just one of these and I go, show me what one shape, so it's working. So it goes from one to the other. And then there's that one, which is not cool because it's doing that weird linear transition. So, but we're going to use all of them in conjunction together so that we're going to set the values here so that it works. Now, if you've already loaded that bacon target and it's already ready to go, you can just type bacon sub, and it's going to create bacon sub target. And this is going to be this little node that we've created, and we're going to need 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I could have put this all into one plugin so that you can have just add more into an array type of thing, but I find that having it as individual objects for this does two things. One, this makes it friendly for multi-threading because now it can do one graph node per CPU if it wanted to. Maya is actually really good about that, so it's capable of. So if I have 1, 2, 3, whoa, it goes all over the place. So I got this guy, this guy, this guy, and this guy. Okay, we're ready to go. Okay, so if I do this, the other thing too is that even though we're going to be having to set values here, it's not really all that different than what we did before. And I'm going to show you a method that you don't even have to do any thinking. It's like you just do what you did before in Maya and with the Maya sub target, and it should be fine. So the first one that's here, I'm going to, before I start connecting things, I'm going to set it. So we're going to look at this. So there's input weight, and then there's the previous target, the target, and the next target. By doing this, you'll see in a moment, it's really easy. So we're going to just focus on the target. So just like we did before in the Maya sub-targets, the first one is going to be at 25%, so 0.25. And right now I'm just going to go through them and set their targets. This is okay. 0.5. This one is not, so I'm going to put it 0.75. And then the last one is going to be this shape here. This is the 100%, right? That's the only difference that we have with how Maya was doing it. So at the target for this one is once I reach 100%, I want this to be on, type of thing. So now that we've set all the targets, the cheapest way of doing this, and again, like I was mentioning spaghetti before, we're just adding more, but in this case, it's not really a big deal. So you'll see what I mean. If we take the target, which is always at the bottom, it's going to be the previous target for this guy, right? So this guy has a target, but its previous target is going to be this one's target. Okay, so we only focused on targets. So in this case, that's all we're going to get out of here, because it doesn't, the only thing we need to worry about is the next target. So the next target is this one, right? This is a target, and I go, that's the next target. So if I look here, it's done 0, 0.25, and 0.5. Focusing again on the target, these are all the targets have been set correctly. Now we just have to say which one's the previous and which one's the next. That's it. You could do this manually. You don't need to do it with lines. So in fact, here it's pretty easy. We've got, obviously this is going to be 0.75, right? Because if the target was 0.5, it's easy to do 0.25. I'm just showing you alternatives, all right? So this one's easy too. I'm going to put 0.5. That's the previous one. The target's 0.75, and then the next one is going to be 1. And in this guy, it's a little bit different. We already set the target to 1, but the previous target is 0.75 because we were just working on that, right? So it shouldn't be too hard. Hopefully you have no trouble with this. This is the trickiest part to it, but once you're done with this, you're pretty much done. So now all we're going to do is have the input weight come in here through with the x-axis, right? That's the one that's controlling all this. I'm just punching this in here and here. So all of this has been set. And now we just need to take the output values and connect it to the correct shapes. And hopefully we've done everything correctly. There we go. Okay, so now I've connected all these. I mean, it's not too bad to do that, right? I find maybe I can make tools to do that, but I think this is pretty straightforward. If I look at what's going on here, we're getting exactly what we had before. So it didn't take too long. And this is pretty easy compared to doing all the divisions and all the stuff that goes with it. So we're saving ourselves some time. And because we're using these plugins, they're pretty efficient. So we're not having to deal with something that added a lot of unhealthy stuff to calculate. So if I go like this, I'm just going to double check to see if it's got still the crappy behavior that I'm expecting from a blend shape like that. And there we go. So that's one way of setting it up. Now, just as a final reminder, I'm going to show you, let's see, hide this. And I'm just going to show you this. This is just this mesh has a single bone, which is this one right here. So if I rotate this, this is still way better than any number of blend shapes that you could add. You have the point's always going to follow that circle. You're not going to have any problems. Now, the problem that happens with blend shape with skinning is that it's the in-between, right? If you have some vertices that have a certain weight and then another vertice that has another weight, it's a different kind of linear issue. But like I said already too many times, there's a video that's coming where I'll be talking about the different methods to fix volume issues that come from linear skinning. It's not a big deal, and you can set this up in Unreal very easily, and it will be very optimal. Okay, so with all this being said, hopefully I've helped you focus your energy on things that are going to work well for you. If you absolutely want to use blend shapes with sub-targets, I've given you a method to be able to be Unreal friendly. So hopefully this will alleviate some of the concerns that some of you had. And for those of you that are just, from the big old internet and found this video, hopefully you found it useful. These plugins should be available on Rigonomicon.com. It will lead you to a GitHub page where you can download this plugin, no problem. And I should have versions for Linux, Mac, and Windows. If it's a plugin that uses C++, but if not, it'll be using the Python API, which means it'll work on any version of Maya that you can think of, and it doesn't even matter which version it is. All right, so hopefully that helps some of you out.